Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. And the Midnight Beta has been going on for some time. Blizzard are going on holidays, so I'm not anticipating like a ton of class changes over these next coming weeks. So I wanted to do a bit of an update as far as the performance when it comes to the melee DPS specializations in a PvP environment. Do note that this is likely going to change, but I do plan on updating this as it goes along. But I expect that this will be like the most concrete form of an estimate for their power based on my experience so far, whether it's firsthand or offhand from observing or playing against these specializations, to give you an idea of what to expect as far as like viability, strength, complexity, trying to take everything, all encompassing tier list basically for their performance when it comes to PvP. And if you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, educational and entertaining content, then make sure to smash that subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated. So let's get started on warriors. First of all, for these melee DPS, warrior is indirectly benefiting a lot from this expansion. Basically, every knockback is being removed, which is a benefit to every melee DPS. A significant portion of root effects are being removed, as well as removing the third diminishing return of crowd control. So you're not going to go 3 polymorphs, 3 roots, 3 clones. It's going to be 2 polymorphs, maybe 1 root because they've pruned a lot, and then 2 clones. So crowd control reduction in general, I think, benefits warrior the most, and you are retaining a lot of your crowd control. Essentially, you're basically keeping everything. They've buffed up your self-healing quite a lot so far from the testing, and I've seen a couple of builds of warrior that just absolutely throttle, a little bit more so arms than fury. And that's like the difference between the two is going to be really where the tough debate comes into play for me. When it comes to dueling, they're easily in the top upper echelons, I think, and they are very simple to play. Very simple, like medium, easy to easy medium, I'd say, as far as difficulty. I think for Fury right now, I'm going to slot it in at A tier. Do note that this tier list goes like top to bottom, so if I think a spec is above another one, obviously it's better than the one below it, but also left to right. So if a spec is on the left of a tier, it's better than the specs to the right of the tier. I think Fury Warrior's pretty well rounded across the board, really easy to pick up, and decently strong. Just in a solid position, basically. Arms Warrior is basically the same. I think that it's just a really good specialization at the moment, not over the top, just kind of solid. In some situations, it's very overpowered. I'd say in like 1v1 situations, second wind and the self-healing buffs, very noticeable. But in 3v3, I think there's some other specializations, and even in dueling, there's some other specializations that are outperforming them. So you guys are just solid. You guys are just decent. I think you're going to have a good time if you're a warrior main at the moment. Enhancement Shaman, I really like what they did with the rework and the ability prune. Those feel really good. But as far as like performance, it feels like it doesn't have the numbers to back it up against a bunch of the other classes. So while the mechanics of the class feel a lot easier to play and understand, and less convoluted, you just don't have the numbers. So for me, it's a really big performance issue. But I do think it's a lot easier to play. The complexity has been brought down significantly. But for me, I'm going to put it on C tier, which might be harsh, but I think that it's fair. Damage output is just very low. And it's making it very tough to compete. You can make one on the beta right now if you got access to give it a go yourself. I'm probably going to play one actually again pretty recently here to just make sure that I'm right about this assessment. But I'm pretty sure I'm right about this assessment that enhancement is struggling a lot more than other melee DPS. Feral Druid, very similar to Enhancement Shaman. They've done a phenomenal job of simplifying the class. They've added new abilities like Chomp, which give you an ability to use when you're low energy, which feels really nice. So as far as like the mechanics of the class, it feels really good. However, they are removing fast cast cyclones. That's going to negatively impact you by a lot. It's going to be very hard to get cyclones. And the diminishing return changes as well. No more like 3 clones, although maybe that doesn't affect Feral as much because I don't think Feral really was going for like triple clones on people very often. You just lose too much damage. Maybe not really a big deal there. You do benefit from not getting stunned 3 times in a row. You know, Feral Druid's notorious for dying in stuns in PvP situations. Probably less likely to happen, which does help you out. More sustain oriented, more focused around dots. So given, you know, number tuning in the future, I kind of expect Feral to be good. But at the moment, I think its damage is just not really there. I think it's probably a bit better than Enhanced, mostly carried by the fact that it's Mortal Strike to reduce healing, which is very prevalent at the moment with the current pace of the game. And maybe its mobility is slightly better as well. But damage output on both Feral and Enhanced, I think, feels much lower than some of the upper tier classes at the moment, and that's just a tuning knob away, really. Like Feral and Enhance, I feel like they're just a tuning knob away from feeling awesome and great. on release. Unlike maybe some specializations which feel like they like lost their core identity or a lot of mechanics of their spec, these guys are just a tuning knob away from being really phenomenal and fun. But right now, this is where they're slotted for me in the beta. Unholy DK is this easy auto lock up here. They've been reworking it quite a lot, and they've added a bunch of new modifiers to the game, which basically enhance the damage of all of your pets to the target, and it's just scaling really out of control. So you just do a disgustingly high amount of damage. They've also introduced new PvP talents that make Death Strike heal for a significant amount, which feel good, but it's a lot on top of the fact that they run you over like a bulldozer, and now they heal for a lot as well. My concern with them in this position is that mechanically, I feel like they feel pretty cool. I like them with the rework. It's one of my favorite reworks. But numerically, I feel like you guys are going to get sledgehammered eventually. Like it's inevitable. Like you guys are it's way too good right now. You're going to get sledgehammered, and I don't know if you'll come back from, depending on how hard they decide to sledgehammer you. So like these guys are one tuning knob away from feeling really good. You guys are probably one tuning knob away from going to the abyss at the moment. If you're making a character on the beta and you want to feel really OP, that's the spec. That's the spec you want to go for. Frost DK, mostly this is secondhand from other players. I've heard that it has a really good kind of burst window. That's what you kind of expect for Frost DK. But I don't think it's going to compete with the Unholy DK. I don't understand the Death Strike talent they introduced for Unholy. I don't think it's going to work for Frost because it has to do with your lesser ghouls, and you don't have that as Frost. So I don't think you're going to get the same Death Strike benefits. But I think it's actually pretty solid other than that, from my understanding. So I'm going to put, it could be B. It could be between B or A. I'm a little bit more skeptical with this one. But you are completely outshined by Unholy at the moment, though. Even if that weren't the case. Maybe it's actually safer to put it here. I'm going to put it here for right now. Could be wrong about this, but I'm going to put it down a little bit lower because it's going to get weird when we get to some of the other specs, I think, if I put them directly next to Frost DK. Havoc Demon Hunter. When it comes to dueling, one of the best specs. I think you can compete with Death Knight, come very close to competing with Death Knight. But there's some other range specs like BM Hunter, I think, that are better than you at the moment. In 3v3, really tanky, really durable, and much like Feral, dying in stuns is a lot less likely. And that was the main weakness for Havoc Demon Hunter in PvP situations, was dying in stuns. So if dying in stuns is no longer a viable strategy, you're going to feel really strong. You have a lot of self-healing, a lot of sustain. They've really simplified it. It's very easy to play now. It's very, very easy to play. I'm tempted to put it up here with Unholy, but Unholy is obviously better. So again, left to right, Unholy is better, but I think Havoc is actually really good at the moment. Given all the crowd control changes as well, it's one of those classes that can get CC'd a lot and die in stuns, and those are the two components that are being removed. So as long as the numbers are there for you mechanically, Demon Hunter I think is something that could be very extraordinary. Retribution Paladin. Now this is one that's probably a hot topic given how good it's been throughout the War Within and even Dragonflight, right? I think it's a solid option, but you are getting hit pretty hard as far as crowd control is concerned. So Repentance is gone. It's not an option at all. If you want to take Blinding Light, it means you can't get Searing Glare because Searing Glare replaces Blinding Light. So you're basically Hammer of Justice plus Searing Glare or Hammer of Justice plus Blinding Light, and then that's it. Those are your only two combinations of crowd control. As far as damage, it'll feel pretty much exactly the same. As a little bit of ability reduction with Judgment transforming into Hammer of Wrath, so maybe it feels a little bit simpler. And given that you don't have the option to CC, you don't have to worry about the skill development in that regard whatsoever. You can just run around bonking people. But as far as like overall performance, I definitely don't think it's as good as Unholy or Havoc. Do I think it's as good as Warrior? Is now the next best question. It's probably pretty close. In performance to Warrior, but I don't know if I want to say it's all the way there. I'm gonna more safely put it on B tier for right now. I think the crowd control hits are actually gonna affect you negatively the most, and given the current number tuning, I don't think you feel as strong as these guys, and you don't have Mortal Strike. And given the fact that they're removing add-ons, using things like Sanctuary, Freedom become a lot more challenging because it's harder to see if your healer is in crowd control. So your gameplay might slow down a bit. Numbers are okay, like they're solid, decent, but these guys are definitely outshining you. Survival Hunter, really good damage. They've simplified the class a lot though, and a lot of the damage is front loaded into Boomstick, and I think once people figure that out, you might have a harder time as far as performance. But I definitely think you guys are a solid pick at the moment, and it's way easier than it was. So keybinds reduced significantly, but if you liked the utility, I kind of much like Ret, you're losing a lot. Like out of all the spec, like, Havoc's losing Fell Eruption, but you can take Illidan's Grasp through the PP talents. There's some compensatory ways to get some of it back, but Survival is just flat out like losing Scatter, losing Root. You're kind of more like a warrior that doesn't really, I guess, Binding Shot, maybe. You've got like a little bit of a stun, but it feels like your lockdown is a lot less. But at the same time, I think Freezing Trap is a really effective crowd control at the moment, given that so much crowd control from other classes is coming down. That Freezing Trap is actually very strong. But I also think Marksman and BM outshine you at the moment, which will make you feel worse. So maybe I should put this on B tier when it comes across PvP, like as a whole. Maybe B tier is a safer spot for it, because you will, if you play BM, you will feel the power, and even if you play Marksman right now in the beta, you will feel the power. So maybe B tier is a bit of a safer option for it at the moment. Windwalker Monk, I think, is definitely A tier. Has a really good damage profile at the moment. I don't know if it's going to get nerfed though, because it's a little bit burst heavy, and I don't know if they want burst heavy damage or they want sustain heavy damage or not. So maybe it does get nerfed into the future. As far as ability reduction, they've just basically merged a bunch of your spells, like your Fortifying Brew now cast Diffuse at the same time if you talent for it, instead of having two separate keybinds. So you basically have like Swifty one-shot defensive macros and offensive macros, with how they've rescaled your offensive cooldowns, and Whirling Dragon Punch getting fused in with Strike of the Windlord. So definitely you'll notice cooldown reductions, keybind reductions. On this one, it's a little bit simpler, but it's still a little bit more challenging to play just because of the hit combo, where you try not to repeat a previous ability that you've used, which no other class really has that. Survival has it a little bit with Tip the Spear, but it's not to the same extent. So a little bit more challenging in that regard. But much like Warrior, you benefit a lot from the removal of a lot of the roots, especially like Frost Mage roots, right? Like you guys, if you played Melee, you know what I'm talking about. But I think it's sitting probably right here on A tier, just a solid option. Subtlety Rogue in general is pretty hard to rank. Subtlety Rogue got simplified really badly. Like, it is easy peasy, bro. This is the easiest Subtlety Rogue will ever be. In 1v1, it's very good. However, not being able to cheese people like 3 stones in a row requires a little bit more of like resetting there, and kind of getting a little bit more focused around sustained damage for sure, is what I've noticed for. But performance-wise, I think it's a really good pick. Maybe the best rogue spec at the moment. Do I want to say that like maybe A tier above Warrior or something very close to it? It's very good performance, but if you liked the mechanics of like combo point management and keeping bleeds on the target and not just stun attack, basically, you won't get that. It's basically just stun attack. It's very linear, very simple gameplay, which is, I mean, that's what people, they wanted the simpler gameplay. This is one of the most simplified one, but you will feel the crowd control reductions, not being able to triple stun people. But at the same time, your synergies with like Mage I actually think they might go up, because while you can't sheep 3 times in a row, you can sheep full duration, I think like 2 seconds faster. So if you're good at getting setups like on the ball, you're actually getting more full sheeps, which I think can actually be more threatening than a triple DR sheep in a lot of those cases. So there is that. Also, the fact that they've taken away stuns from a lot of these classes means that they can't DR your stuns anymore. So a little bit of a benefit there. It's mostly just Demon Hunter, though, I think, as far as removal of stuns. Outlaw Rogue. Oh, this is what the icon we're using for Outlaw Rogue. I haven't seen a lot of it recently. It was okay, I think. The last time that I remember interacting with it, it was like okay performance in the beta. This is another one I'm going to probably get more hands-on with. I previously said this was like the hardest spec in the game, one of them. It was the highest APM, the most spammy, weak aura tracking, buff management. They've taken a lot of that complexity away by reworking Roll to Bones and the visuals for it to make it a little bit easier to understand. But I still think it could be pretty challenging. Not as challenging as it was, but it still might be more challenging than every other spec, if that makes sense. I think a safe bet is to say that it's probably like somewhere in the middle of B tier. I feel safer. I don't think it hasn't been egregious, and I haven't seen it like completely floundering from my experience offhand with it. So I think B tier is probably a better spot for it. It's probably one of the specs where it's like, again, just a tuning knob away, just a little bit of a bump up on damage, and you're going to be in a solid spot. And I think ideally, like, all the classes feel like they're A tier, right? That's where you're at. And some of them have advantages in different scenarios than others, but for the most part, you don't feel like this guy doing 300 million times the damage to everybody else, right? Like, that's too far of a gap. Assassination Rogue. this is again one that's a little bit more offhand experience for me personally, from seeing it. I think you're going to feel the nerfs of the triple CCs the most of any class, because you would triple Garrote and triple cheap shot people, and you can't do that anymore. You also can't AoE Garrote, I think is my understanding with this one, with Assassination Rogue, so it's gonna be a little bit more difficult. Well, you don't have that main advantage in a lot of those situations, but its damage is good. Its damage from what I've seen is good. Again, I think it's probably safer for me to just say it's kind of mid at the moment and get more hands-on testing with this. And the fact that they're not making any changes means that I actually have like a substantial amount of time now to get more hands-on testing with the specializations, and to feel them out and try different talent builds and figure out what's going on as far as the specifics of it, what to expect as a new player, what to expect as a veteran player of the specialization, right? Because those are two completely different perspectives, but they're both valid and important to consider. But this is kind of how things are vibing on the midnight beta. If you encounter one of these specs towards the top, you will probably notice them feel a lot more powerful than the specs coming in towards the bottom of the tier list. So I hope you guys enjoyed this discussion regarding the midnight beta. Remember, this is still the beta, and I can see these changes changing like even after the game is already released. But I think it's just nice to get a little kind of take on it, see how they're doing so far, and see how this progresses basically moving for the rest of the beta into release. So thank you guys very much for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.